What's going on, guys? Thanks again for being here. Today I'm actually having the privilege of reviewing another brand new Godox. As a matter of fact, they actually sent me this item before they even get a chance to publish on the website, and every time this happens here I feel very honored and very privileged and also very special. So thanks Godox again for letting me be the first to review this light. So today I'm going to review the UL150 Mark II, and stay tuned, don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. And a quick disclaimer, Godox sent me this light for me to test it out. I don't get paid to say anything, and all my words and opinions, they are my own. And this video is not sponsored by Godox, even though I'm wearing a Godox shirt because it's a brand that I like, and you probably like Godox, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. So when they sent this light, I requested them to send me a couple shirts. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you up front everything that I wanna do, especially the two primary things that you guys wanna see on the review. First of all, using the V-mount batteries, what you get out of this ballast as far as power, brightness and all, and also the most important thing is how this light will look like in front of an actual subject instead of just shining the light on the wall, which doesn't do anything, right? So I'm actually going to be using the light here with several modifiers, the huge ones, the small ones, so you guys can see how far you can actually shoot with 150 watt lights, and it all depends what kind of modifiers they use here. Each modifier they put in front of this light is going to dictate how powerful the light can be. So should you buy a 150 watt light, a 300, 600, 1200 watt light, for example, this is a 3200 square foot studio. If you actually place the light far away, you're going to need a lot of power. So the 150 is going to be good for many situations. And again, it depends on what modifier they place in front of this light. For example, the Godox QRP120 is a very big and deep modifier, which is going to be difficult for the light to cut through all those layers of diffusion. So again, depending on what you put in front here. But for most situations, a 150 watt light is going to be plenty, especially if you're shooting the subject here with a softbox 3, 4, 5 feet away. And especially that we all like to shoot in shallow depth of field, such as f2.8, f1.4, f1.8. Now once you start shooting like ISO 100, apertures like f4, f5.6, f8, 150 watts is not going to cut it. I actually had a hard time actually shooting something with 600 watt LED lights. So depending on the power, it's not going to be enough. So this light is actually primarily designed for video, which I actually recommend. For photography, you're going to need a lot of power. The Godox UL150 Mark I and the 150 Mark II is pretty much an FV150, but without a fan. And this is the only 150 watt light that I know that can actually run indefinitely without a fan. And this light will also remain decently cold thanks to its size of a heat sink here and also the size of the light. So the main difference between the two lights, the 150 Mark I and the Mark II, as you can see, is the completely redesigned ballast, which by the way looks like a miniature of the Godox M600D ballast, which I actually reviewed. If you want to watch the video, the link is going to be right here. And this is a lot nicer because everything is built in inside. All you need to plug in here is the actual power cord. It's very clean and very compact. And also that they add 4 dimming curves, which is the linear, exponential, logarithm, and S-curve. What you're going to find inside the box, obviously, is the light itself, the ballast, the necessary cables to connect the light to the ballast, also a power cable that features a power con cable, which is very nice, and also the reflector, the protective LED cap right there. And it also comes with this little safety cable. In my opinion, this is actually just to hang the actual power cord or the actual light cord to avoid stress dangling. It does not fit anywhere, and it's not on the manual where exactly this thing goes. I guess you can actually put it right here where you attach the light to the stand, and then you actually loop the cable right here. And it also comes with this. I guess this is just in case you lost your thing on a stand. They are kind enough to provide a replacement thing for your stand. And it also comes with the shoulder strap. This is something that I don't use. I usually prefer to carry the case like this, but it does come with one. And it also comes with the manual that nobody reads, but no problem. This is what I'm here for, so you don't need this. And you can also use this remote, the Godox RCA6. The old one uses the RCA5. This one uses a newer remote. And actually, you can actually control the light using the remote control and the application at the same time. It doesn't interfere with each other. Another thing that I'm actually very happy to see is that a lot of manufacturers, including Godox, they started to make these power con cables, which is a more robust, safer, and more professional way instead of the old school desktop little 3-prong outlets they see all the time. They actually get pulled out very easily. So this actually interlocks with the ballast. It doesn't go anywhere. As soon as you hear that click, it's there to stay. And also the length of this cable, which is very generous. This is at least 18 to 20 feet. In most cases, you're not going to need an extension cord, and also the thick gauge of this cable, and also how flexible that is. To put it back here, all I have to do is to follow the manufacturer bandings right here, so you can actually put this back here very easily like this. And they also provide a very nice Velcro, which is enough to wrap the whole thing. And the same exact thing goes with this cable, the same high quality. If you don't want to blow a fuse before you power this light onto the outlet, make sure you actually hook this up first. And as you can see, there's no way to do it wrong. This is actually a female with a male. Hold the ballast from the bottom, plug this in here, and the other end goes in here. And both of these cables, they're actually very long, so you can actually put this light as high as you want, and you have plenty of cable if you need to do that. Now regarding the construction of this light, everything from top to bottom, back to front, everything is made of metal, including the yoke, of course, and the part that goes on the light stand. And it also features an umbrella holder in case you don't feel like setting up a softbox. Sometimes we get lazy a little bit, so it allows you to actually hook up an umbrella here. And this is going to slide all the way to the back of the unit to ensure the umbrella is actually safely attached right here. Another thing that's great to see, again, the Godox does this all the time, especially that you can actually take this light on the field because of the V-mount capability, is the fact that they have a front glass element right here, especially summertime. There's going to be 150 bugs here every minute crawling around this light, so they're not going to be burning, staining, or damage your LED light. And the same thing with the ballast, everything is made of metal, and I love the fact that the transformer, everything is actually built inside here, so the only thing that you need to connect wire-wise is the actual cable that goes from the ballast to the light. Everything else is built in, and also I love the handle instead of the usual leather that they have on the M600D. I actually prefer this material better, it's a lot softer, it's similar to the Aperture ballast, the way the handle is built. This thing is pretty heavy, and the safest way to mount this, make sure you use the handle, and here's your V-mount plate on the back here. You simply slide this down, make sure you hear that click, and once that's clicked, it's not going anywhere and it does not wobble. To remove is as easy as putting it in. You can do this all day. Now, one thing to point out here, so be very careful, is the actual release button, because it is very close to the actual V-mount release button here. So if you accidentally press this button, your ballast is going to be ejected out of here. So make sure when you eject your battery, make sure you do not touch this button. Now, when it comes to installing V-mount battery to this ballast, keep in mind that some batteries, such as this Star brand here, which by the way is an excellent battery, super powerful, 201 watt-hour battery. But the way this battery is fit on any ballast, not this one, many ballasts that I have, is always a little tricky. It's difficult to actually put it in here somehow. Now, when you're installing V-mount batteries into this ballast, you can either use one or two. The only difference that's going to be is it's going to be limited to 50% when you use a single V-mount battery, but when you actually use two, there's no limitation. You can actually have 100% run. So in this case, I'm actually running 100% V-mount battery only, so which is pretty nice. Now, when you're actually using V-mount batteries, keep in mind, for example, the Godox M600D, which is a 600 watt light, you're never going to be able to crank this up to 100% depending on the power of the V-mount batteries, because it is physically impossible. Because it's a 600 watt light, it requires a ton of amps, and this is where the limitation goes. So when you're actually using a M600D, for example, it's going to allow you to go to a certain brightness to protect the V-mount batteries. Otherwise, the rate of discharge is going to be so great, you're going to immediately damage these batteries. Now, this light's for being a 150 watt light, and this battery, each one has the capability of providing 200 watt-hour batteries each, which equals 400 watt-hour battery. You can easily and very comfortably use this light with the V-mount battery cranked up to 100%, and this is why they let you crank it up to 100%. And also including the 48 volt inlet here, it's going to be also, of course, giving you 100% light power. And also, of course, when you actually plug the light into the outlet. Now, keep in mind, some ballasts, they will allow you to charge the V-mount battery while it's connected here via the AC. For example, the M600D, again, the ballast lets you at least charge one single V-mount battery. When you actually plug it in on the side, that's actually yellow, the eject button. But this ballast here, according to the manual, I didn't see anything regarding charging a battery. So it's pretty safe to assume that this ballast does not allow you to charge your V-mount batteries. Now, one very important thing before you install V-mount batteries in this ballast, and this information is in the manual, which I highly recommend that you guys read, is a tiny little booklet. So to avoid rebooting procedures and all, first of all, turn off the ballast, unplug the AC cable out of here, install your V-mount batteries, and then you power it on. Otherwise, you're going to have to reboot the ballast, for example. So let's say, for example, you have one V-mount battery installed, which is going to be limiting the power output to 50%. As soon as you plug in the AC cable here, the ballast is going to be reading all kinds of things wrong, so it's going to be forcing you to reboot. So again, always unplug the power cable, always turn off the ballast, install the V-mount batteries, and then finally plug it in and turn it on. And also the super clamp mount floater style that they include is actually awesome. It's one of the most secure things to mount the ballast. And also notice that you can actually do a 360 depending how you mount this light. You're not going to scratch or hit anywhere on the stand here. The super clamp comes in 2 pieces, so you decide which way is best for you to mount, this way or that way. I prefer this way because it's easy to grab from here. The best way to open this is to grab this way, and then look how easy it is. If you do this here, it's more difficult. So you see some resistance here, so you close it, very easy to do that. So you just mount this piece right here, where this hole is, with the V-mount facing the proper way. Press this button here and tighten it down. Then you mount this bowl. Don't over tighten because the stands, they're hollow, so you don't want to crush your tube, right? So this is what it looks like in the front. You can also adjust the position of the ratchet knob so it doesn't get in the way. This particular accessory lets you mount this ballast in a flat surface such as a table instead of a stand. The thing is, a lot of people, they're complaining that this actual mount is wobbly because you might find your accessory mounted right where the screw is. So if you left this piece here, when you tighten, it's not fully tightened yet, which is going to result in wobbling. So make sure you remove this device out of here, and then you finish tightening, and then nothing wobbles. The UL150 features a rubber between the screw teeth right here, so I guess in most extreme cases, I would suppose you could actually remove the rubber and expose the two teeth interlocking with each other. So right now I'm going to be doing a test here with the Godox UL150II, which is about 4 feet in diameter and 120 centimeters. It goes around here. It's a pretty big softbox, and this weighs in excess of 7 pounds. So the best way to hook up a modifier this size, let the gravity do the work. So mount it vertically this way, so you can easily come here and do this here. Then to remove, you just do that. Super easy, right? Instead of doing this here. This is pretty heavy. Now let's do a droop test to see how this behaves. Always hold a little bit higher this way, tighten it, and then let it go. So it looks like it holds up pretty well. There's no drooping, no sagging of any kind, so I'm pretty satisfied the fact that I can actually hook up a modifier this big without any problem whatsoever. Now keep in mind that this is a 150 watt light. The larger the modifier, the more difficult it is for the light to cut through the two layers of diffusions, not to mention the depth from here to there. Those softboxes there, they're regular octagon softboxes, therefore they are shallower, so light only travels this little. This light here is going to travel all this much, and again cutting through all these layers of diffusion. So when I actually do an interview with a 150 watt light using a modifier this big, of course the light's going to be gorgeous because it's a huge source of light, but if you need to back the light at a considerable distance, you're going to consider a shallower modifier so the light can actually be brighter with this light. Now usually I utilize modifiers of this size with lights 300 watts and above, even 600 watts, because again, when we actually back the light out this much and the subject is right here, the light is not going to be powerful enough. Even if it is a 300 watt light, depending what you want to do, if it is a bright window in the back and everything, you need a very powerful light. So again, if you use a modifier of this size, as long as the subject is within this distance right here, about 3-4 feet away, yes, this is going to be a gorgeous light, and a 150 watt light will do just fine. Other than that, you're going to use at least a 300 watt LED light for this. And if you're interested in this softbox, I actually made a very highly detailed review, and the link is right here if you want to watch it later. So this little rubber disc in between, as you can see, it holds the UL150II very easily. But if you wish to remove this, you can. But be very careful when you remove this. I recommend that you actually set the light on a stand the way I'm showing you here. So first unscrew this very slowly. Hold the light from the bottom, very slowly. And then very carefully remove this thing out of here. Then you simply grab the disc. Now before you start to screw this back in here, notice that this hole here must match with this pin right there. So put it right here. Then everything's pretty much aligned here. So all you have to do is to screw this back in here very slowly. Now since there's no rubber here, you do not need to over tighten anything. Just a little bit of a tightening. I don't feel any tension yet. There you go, right here. That's all you gotta do. With this here, nothing will sag, nothing will droop. I don't care what modifier you put in front of this light. But the rubber already does a good job. But again, since there's no rubber, do not over tighten because this is plastic here. This part is metal, but this is plastic. So this is for extreme situations, and as you can see, the teeth aligns very well. But I'm going to install this back because it has no problem holding my Godox UL150II 7-pound softbox. Now here's the top of the ballast. I actually have this mounted on a boom. If you ever need to mount this on a boom, you can. So to power this on, press and hold. It goes from 0% to 1% increments very quickly all the way to 100%. The DMX, you have your addresses from off to 1 to 512. And next we have the effects button. Each effect, you press this button once. That's when you control the version 1, 2, and 3. To control the brightness, press the button again, and there you go. And to get out of here, make sure you press the effects button once again. Next is the menu. It starts with the wireless. You actually have the wireless on and off, your channel, your groups, and everything. Press the menu back again. Bluetooth, press the button. You can choose the on and off. To reset, press the button once again. Turn it to the right. The Bluetooth is reset. Press the menu button again. Next is the DMX, which I just showed you. Next we have the dimmer, which you can actually set to linear, S-curve, exponential, or logarithm. I usually prefer linear. Next we have the screen brightness. Press this button from 1 to 3. And then you have the language. Be careful when you actually unpack this for the first time. It might be in Chinese. All you have to do is to press the button and then you actually access the language so you don't get lost with the Chinese language here. Then you have the reset. Whatever is highlighted in orange, this is where it's selected to. You have yes or no. I choose no. Press the button. And the version and upgrade. You have to turn off the light and then plug the light on the USB port right here, and the update will automatically start. And if it takes too long, the menu actually goes back to the previous page. To connect this light, on top right, see this add little icon. Click on add, click on the circle right there, hit confirm, and there it is. Keep in mind that the green magenta has no effect because this is not an RGB light in order to actually make this happen. At the top center, click this button. You have the effects. Not all these effects will apply to this light, only 4. And at the very bottom is your brightness control and the speed, version 1, 2, and 3 of the effects, which are 4 of them. One thing that I really like to see here is the fact that you can actually operate the light either using the remote control or the app at the same time. So you can actually use the app right here or pick it up from here. Now keep in mind, for example, if you are 13% right here, the application is going to override that. And as soon as you touch the remote, it's going to go back to either 13 or 12% and vice versa. And at the menu settings, you go to the wireless, and the setup is as follows. On the remote control, the brightness is right here from 0% to 1% increments all the way to 100%. To change the color temperature here, if you have a bicolor light available, quickly press the set button, then you can actually change the color temperature from 2500 degrees Kelvin all the way to 10,000 degrees Kelvin if your light allows it to go that high. Since the UL150 and the 150 Mark II is a daylight only, it doesn't matter if you even set this to 9900 degrees Kelvin. It doesn't affect at all because all you will see is daylight only. And to change the channel or group, press this button. It goes from letters to numbers. I want to set it to group A and channel 1. To change the channel, press this button again. You can change the channel right here. And the last step, make sure the ID matches the ID on the ballast, menu, wireless, ID 01, this is what I chose. Double tap quickly this channel group button, and then you have the ID, and there you go. Let's see what happens if I actually set the wrong ID here. ID 02, and as you can see, the remote does not work. ID 01, no problem. Right now the light is right there, and I can turn it on from here. So the range of this remote is pretty ridiculous. I can even go further if I like. The light is on, as you can see. All right, here's the most important part of the review, I would say. This is the actual light in front of a subject. I'm shooting with the Canon R3, which is a color profile called Cinetech, which is a thing that you download from somewhere. It has a little unique kind of a color feature, and the light on the background, don't worry about it. It's just my strobe's LEDs. It's not even powerful enough to even touch your hair. So everything that you see here is the light about 45 degrees, slightly higher. This is the only light that you see registering right here. And the wide shot, here's the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I'm gonna be using the phone near the camera so you guys can see what ISO and shutter and everything that I am shooting. Okay, so right now I'm actually using the minimal settings in case you guys like to shoot in shallow depth of field. So right now I have the camera set to ISO 160, the aperture is f1.8, and the shutter is 1/80 of a second. The light is currently set to 30%, and this is what you get with this particular settings right here. Now let's crank up the light to 100%. Alright, so to fix this, you can either lower the ISO. As low as it will go is ISO 100, which is still a little bit overexposed. You can actually either increase the shutter to 125, 160, that looks good right there. Or you can go back to the same 80, and then slightly close the aperture until it looks like this here. So f2.8, 1/80th of a second, ISO 100. Let's crank it up to ISO 800. All right, so this is what you get with 150 watt lights. Everything is cranked up. I did not move or touch anything. So I'm just doing the aperture here. You can actually set as low as f8, I believe. f7.1, it looks like this here, correctly exposed. Or you can actually go back to f1.8 and you can shoot as fast as 1/1000th of a second. There you go. And again, this is ISO 800. Or you can do any combination, 1/200th of a second, and then close the aperture a little bit, and the proper exposure will be about f4 or f4.5, depending on your preference. On the f4, there's a slightly little zebra here, but that's still okay because most of the skin is well exposed. If you want to get really picky, f4.5, the zebra is gone. So I'll just show you how bright this light can get with a giant softbox. Now, next thing that I want to try here is a smaller softbox, and let's see what happens. Now I have this little lantern softbox, which allowed me to actually get the light slightly closer to the subject because the other one was so big you can actually go, this close, right? So let's see what happens now. So right now I'm still at ISO 800, 1/80th of a second. Now you notice that the f-stop is slightly higher. It was 6.3 before, I believe it was like 4.5 or 4. Now you can go as much as 5.6 or 6.3. Going back to ISO 100. The aperture now is f2.2. So with the lantern softbox and the camera here, before I was at ISO 100, 1/80th of a second, and the aperture was 1.8, right? There's a slight little zebra on her face, almost nothing noticeable. So you can actually drop the aperture a little bit to f2.2 or 2.0, depending on your taste. If you like a little bit of a zero there, it's fine. But overall, you can shoot with this light all the way down to ISO 100, 1/80th of a second, and f2.0 or f1.8, something like that with these lights. And with ISO 800, you can actually shoot as much as aperture 5.6 with this light, or you can do as fast as 1/640th of a second, and it looks like that. So as you can see, this light is actually pretty powerful for most applications. Now I have the light shining at her using only 1% a bare bulb, and I'll show you here is only 1%. The light off, the light on. 1%. Right now I have ISO 640, shooting at 1/100th of a second, and we have a beautiful result right there. Now with the light at 100%, you definitely want to crank down the ISO to 100, and the aperture will be about f3.2, or the shutter can be as fast as 1/250th of a second. 100% bare bulb. Now I have the subject with the light cranked up to 100%. This is not even right to have a person doing this, so I'm going to go as fast as I can. So if you want to go ISO 100 with the shutter speed as fast as 1/1600th of a second, and this is what you get. You can't see her face right now, but at least a little bit of the face, you can see the exposure. Or I can go back to 1/100th and lower the aperture all the way down to f9, and you have this here at ISO 100. With the ISO 800, you're going to have this f-stop all the way down to f20, which I don't recommend because you're going to have artifacts in the video, so don't go anything past f16. So in this case, you can actually do this way here. 1/250th of a second, f14, ISO 800. And that's the end of my test. As you probably noticed, the UL150 Mark I does not come with the case, and this one also does not come with the case, just to be very clear, even though you're seeing the Godox case right here. This case is the Godox CB16, which fits everything from the ballast to the light, every single cord, the clamps, everything fits in here except the reflector. This one you actually have to pack separately, and I also made a video how to actually put all these components inside safely without scratching or breaking or damaging anything, because believe it or not, it is actually very difficult. I'm actually very good in packing things, and this one was a little bit of a challenge since this case is not exactly designed for the UL150 Mark I or Mark II, but you can actually fit the entire light with the ballast and the clamp and everything in a very safe way without anything touching each other here. Opening the bag here, as you can see, it still opens very easily. However, there's a couple of things to tell you, because if you want to put this way here, you better pay attention, because there's only one way to put this stuff here. Otherwise, you're going to have an enormous difficulty in placing these items inside this bag. So next, that's the time that you guys should really pay attention. I'm not kidding, how I actually managed to put this light inside this bag. So as you can see, everything fits except the reflector. That's not happening. Here's an idea for your reflector. You can actually buy one of those little lunch bags at Walmart, and here's the reflector right there. This actually has a hard plastic which protects the reflector. So when you purchase this case, the first thing they want to do, don't put any lights, no ballast, no power cords, cables, nothing. First thing they want to do is to actually insert this little pad right here, as you see, in the same exact location, and then you temporarily place this thing here on the diagonal side, as you can see. First thing they want to do is to use this. This is actually for the remote, so you wrap here as a sandwich. The Velcro goes this way and only in this area right here. There's no other way. Leave it here. And next, this can actually be placed right here so it doesn't slide, it doesn't scratch your light. Next, you're going to put this as shown right in this area. Then you can actually place the super clamp either here or here. I prefer here. You notice that the super clamp is not going to damage the remote. Next, place this right here. Now here's when things gets a little complicated. You're going to place this light with the umbrella mount face this way, exactly as shown. You're going to tilt it slightly this way, otherwise this is going to be too bulky for the bag. Exactly as shown right here. Make sure the LED is facing this way and the yoke is facing this way here. Next will be the ballast. The only way that this can fit in this bag is facing this way, not this way, because of the V-mount plates are very bulky. And you just insert it this way here. It's a tight fit, but it fits perfectly. And again, this is crazy meticulous if you want to fit your lights in the proper way on this bag. You want to place this cable with the outlet side facing away from the light so you don't scratch it. And you want to put it slightly behind the spigot right here. And the Velcro also helps to prevent this from moving and reaching the light. Next, insert this cable, and again, facing away from the light. And again, the Velcro will help it not to move. And again, to close the case, don't forget this is actually a little bit of a pain in the ass, the stains here, they always get in the way. And as you can see, the zipper closes without any resistance. There's nothing forcing the zippers right here, so the zipper is not going to break. You can actually close the bag, and there you go. There's nothing bulky on top or the bottom. So there you go, you actually have the case and also the reflector all properly packed. Now regarding the case for this light, I actually spoke with Godox and they are considering, maybe considering in actually making a dedicated case for this. I don't know if they're going to be actually sold separately or included with the skit. There will probably be a price change to compensate for the addition of an extra item, which is a case. I don't know, but Godox is actually seriously considering in actually making a case for this light. Meanwhile, you can actually buy the Godox CB16, which fits everything except the reflector. Now here's the thing, how many of you guys actually use these reflectors? They are very nice and they quadruple the amount of lumens that's going to come out of here versus the bare bulb. But every time I usually mount a softbox or other modifiers and also those big frames. And speaking of those frames, this is actually when this reflector comes in handy because again, it quadruples the amount of light output here. So you can actually have a 4x8 frame and 1, 2, or 3 of this light shining directly behind the actual frame. Now reflectors like this, people complain that they actually provide a very hot spot in the background. Actually it does, because this is what reflectors do. If you want a soft reflective light, install like a beauty dish or something that's more like designed to be even, but a reflector like this, always expect a hot spot to be in the background because this is what reflectors do. So here's a good use for a reflector that provides a very hot spot in the middle. For example, let's say if you're doing weddings, and again, these lights, you can take this outdoors because it has V-mount batteries capabilities. So you can actually have a bride and groom about, I don't know, 80 feet, 100 feet away, and this spot is going to precisely shine them without actually lighting the whole area, which is going to make the couple pop. So this is actually can be advantageous in a situation like this if you want to use a reflector that provides hot spots. The UL150II has become my favorite light for 3 reasons. First of all, the ballast, that all I have to do is to plug it in the outlet. There's nothing to hang here or dangle anywhere. It's just the ballast, the outlet, and also because it is fanless, and also because it is a 150 watt silent light. This is actually very critical and very important, especially when I'm at my studio, but the other one that's actually a very quiet place that I know that I don't have any fan noise or any noise coming out of this light, especially if I'm reviewing another light that has a quiet fan. This light's going to help a lot. And that's the end of my review. I hope you enjoyed the content that I provided. I hope it was helpful to you. If you want to consider subscribing to this channel, that'll be awesome. And if you have any questions of any kind, just drop them down in the comment section. I'll respond to everything that I see there. So once again, thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you next time.